1. A few months ago, I made a post on Reddit talking about how I had a dream that my friend was talking to me, and then I woke up to a figure in my corner that I assumed was my friend. I asked if it was them, and it disappeared. Since then, I haven't had any dreams about figures or seen any until this last week. I thought maybe it was just a one-time dream and that it didn't mean anything. I'm still not sure if it does mean something, to be honest. A few days ago, I was having a nightmare, as I do every night, where I had blue mold spots growing all over my legs. It started to create holes in my legs. I was begging everyone to take me to a hospital, but no one was taking me serious. I decided to wake myself up from the dream. Instead, I didn't actually wake up. I just woke up into another dream. In this dream, I was sleeping next to my mom. I looked in her room and there was a black figure in her room watching us. I woke her up and told her that I had a bad dream and to come closer. Then I woke up for real this time, in my room. Later that day, I was sitting in my room and saw a figure walk by my door towards my sister's room. She wasn't home at this time, so it wasn't her. I immediately checked the hallway and no one was there. My brother and his girlfriend had never left their room. The next night I had a dream. I was at a hotel I used to work at, only it was slightly different. At one point in the dream, I'm walking down the hallway and I can see the reflection behind me in the glass doors. I can see what looks like a crowd of black figures. I'm talking at least 30 to 50 figures all standing behind me. I turned around, put my head down, and ran down the hallway back to the lobby, and then I woke up. This morning I was having nightmares as usual. I can't remember what they were about, but I have an everlasting feeling that it was scarier than normal. The only thing I do remember, though, is right before I woke up. There was this blonde lady, and I remember her being right in front of my face. All of a sudden, her eyes roll into her head and turn completely black. The exact second she did this, my cat made a noise that woke me up. I have never been so grateful for being woke up before. I don't know what any of this means. There's strange things that happen at my house from time to time, but it's not every single day. And it's not necessarily downright frightening. More so a voice here and there. My sister, however, has seen a shadow figure grabbing my doorknob the other night. I've only ever heard stuff until recently, whereas she only sees it, and I only heard it. But now I'm seeing stuff for myself. I'm not sure what to do. I feel a little validated knowing I'm not the only one experiencing weird things. Any advice or ideas of what this might be? 2. I work at an oil refinery, a chemical plant in the southern U.S. I will not give the company name for obvious reasons. I work primarily around the rail yard, but we do handle business throughout the whole eastern portion of the plant. About a month ago, I had completed my work for the night and had taken the company truck to a part of the refinery that I was more likely to go unnoticed by my supervisor should they be driving around. This has been my go-to spot to hide from the boss and sleep away the remainder of my shift for the past 2 years or so I've worked here. This part of the refinery, where there had been a relatively localized explosion that tragically took the life of a woman that had been employed directly by the owners of the refinery for about 5 years. She was attempting to fire up burners to restore power to the refinery during an emergency power outage. This took place exactly 10 years before, on the same day and round about the same time in the morning. The area of the plant where this happened is still taped off and shut down to this day. On this night, while sitting in the truck, it had begun to rain very heavily. We had been in a relatively severe drought for the past several months, so the poor weather was welcomed by all, especially with the notice that the plant had sent over the radio stating that there was lightning in the area and to stop work and find the nearest substantial shelter. I was watching a movie on my phone and finding it hard to stay awake with the sound of heavy rain on the roof of the truck. Sometime in the very early morning hours, although I can't be exactly sure on the time, I was awoken from my half-sleep by a huge orange glow that completely engulfed me. It was so intense I couldn't open my eyes past a squint due to the brightness. I could only describe it as being very similar to staring directly into the sun. I immediately recognized that I was in the middle of an explosion. However, there was absolutely no sound, no heat, and no fear. For a moment I questioned if I was still alive, but as the orange glow died down, I saw a woman, completely engulfed in flames, running for about 5 or 6 steps before falling to the ground. Since that day, 10 years ago, there have been a number of pipes installed that run horizontally just above the ground in front of the furnace and meant to bypass it. She ran straight through them. I mean, she ran straight through them like they weren't even there. Then, just as soon as I saw it, it was all gone. The fire was gone, she was gone, the whole space was just as empty as before, and I was back to sitting alone in a truck, listening to the rain. I obviously couldn't believe what I had just seen. I, like everyone else at the plant, was familiar with what had happened on that day, and I knew exactly what I had just witnessed. I just couldn't wrap my head around how I had witnessed an event that had happened a full decade in the past. I drove back to our shop where I promptly clocked out and went out to my personal truck. I sat there for at least half an hour trying to come to terms with what I had just witnessed. After the initial shock wore off, I felt very indifferent about it. It didn't freak me out or anything. What I saw was just very matter-of-fact to me. Even still, though, I kept the story to myself before I figured there was very little benefit to telling anyone. An event like this is obviously hard to forget, especially in the only 3 or so weeks since it happened. But I have tried not to dwell on it too much because I know I will drive myself crazy trying to comprehend exactly why I was somehow able to witness such a well-known and tragic event from 10 years in the past. Then last night, it happened again. We have a very small loading rack that sits in the back of the rail yard that hasn't been manned or used in years. Last night the weather was very foggy, to the point you could only see lights from the refinery for about 100 yards, and could only see objects for maybe 25. I was driving the work truck down to a storage tank we have and talking on my phone to my wife about the trip she had taken to visit her mom in the next state over. As I turned the corner near the truck, my phone dropped the call. I didn't think too much of it because service can be spotty in parts of the refinery, although this area usually has a pretty strong signal. Nevertheless, I figured I would just call her back after I arrived at my destination. I happened to look to my left, to glance at the rack. I never had the opportunity to use it, and it had different equipment than I'm used to using, so I often look at it when I pass in an attempt to picture how all of it worked. It sits about 30 feet from the road, so it's close enough I was able to still make out details pretty well. As I look over, I saw 2 men up there. They were wearing the old company uniform and seemed to be hooking up a large white rail car. These white cars are uncommon in our yard, but not unheard of. However, if we had one staged in this area, there is absolutely no way I would not know about it, nor is there any way I would not have seen it any other of the 10 or so times I had passed that area during the day. I could make out their faces well enough to know that neither of the men were anyone that currently works here. I also noticed the rack didn't look nearly as rusty and neglected as it usually does. It still had paint on it, and didn't look overgrown or abandoned at all. That being said, everything was a little blurry. Like instead of being in the fog, it was more like they were the fog. Like they were part of it. Then, as I reached the next turn, they were gone. The people were gone, the large white car was gone, and the rack was back to its rusty, normal self. Interestingly, the fog started clearing very shortly after this, although I can't say they were all really connected. Once again, this took a minute to process, but I was not freaked out at all. I actually just thought it was really cool that I got to witness this time slip 2 times now. I asked a co-worker that has been here nearly as long as I've been alive when the uniforms changed, and he said it was sometime during 2015. I don't know if I also saw them 10 years in the past, or if it was a different, more random amount of time. Our company has been here since the 60s, so there really is no telling. Both events seem to move slower than normal time. Not slow motion, just a little slower than normal. I don't know if this was actually time moving slower, or if my brain was just taking longer to process what I was seeing. These are the only times in my life that I have ever experienced anything like this. I don't know if it has something to do with the plant, the area, or me. I will say the city where this took place is where one of the most well-documented UFO sightings and abductions took place. Maybe this is just a place where odd things happen. I'm sorry if my thoughts seem jumbled. Reliving this while typing it has proven to make it difficult to keep my mind on track. I would love to hear if anyone else has had a similar experience to this. 3. Early this morning at 6:15 or so, I wake up and need to let the dogs out to go potty. I have 3 dogs. One is completely deaf and the other 2 can hear fine. Anyway, the deaf one goes outside just like you would any other day, and so does the second one. The third one is a Chihuahua whose name is Piper. She will not come to me. She is doing her classic Chihuahua move, so I'm calling her name very gently because my partner was just waking up and in the bathroom getting ready for work. This was happening in the bedroom, if that matters. She just keeps running away, and I don't know why. She's always excited to go potty and run around. I kid you not, after I got done whispering her name and talking baby, someone whispered it louder, crisper, and clearer than I have ever heard any person do in my life. It was no joke, right beside me. Now, what I mentioned about my dog being deaf, I am a night owl, so I was up until maybe 2:40 a.m. last night. My deaf pup is way more receptive to his environment than the other 2, which makes sense. Very protective, jealous, and stubborn little Australian shepherd. So at maybe 1 a.m. I hear some door outside of my room very slowly creak open. And so does my Aussie. My door was shut, so a door outside of mine, again completely deaf, dude jumped up mid-sleep and went into protective mode. Please note, our home is triple insulated. No airflow gets in or out. Outside my window is the air condenser, so I definitely hear when it turns on, and it wasn't on. 2 nights ago, something heavy, I don't know what, fell off my desk. Why would it do that? I don't know. The night after that, I was awake, scrolling on my phone. Something got flicked off my windowsill that is nothing but plants. Okay, cool. Early last night around 8 p.m., Ozzy jumps up mid-sleep and goes into protective mode, pacing around the room and looking directly at the windowsill with the plants. I console him with pets and he eventually goes back to sleep. Still kind of freaked me out. The voice calling the Chihuahua's name really topped off the cake for me. I have always believed, since I have been experiencing it for 10+ years, but this experience really took the cake. I went into where my partner was and asked him, "Did you say something just now?" Also, this first question was the first time we spoke this morning. He says, "No, I just woke up. I've been brushing my teeth." Okay, so you didn't just say Piper's name. No, why would I do that? I knew she slept with you last night, and I didn't even know you were up yet. Later in the morning, I asked him if he thought I was crazy, and he said no, which is a wonderful feeling, by the way. He told me he fully believed me. What do I do? Keep going on about my day until something happens again? Or do I reach out? Do I soak my house in oil? See, I'm not afraid. I've always had a weird thing to see what they're all about, but I don't know what to do. Something is definitely here. 4. My husband and I have lived at our current place a little over 2 years. It's a duplex that was built in the 70s. It was both our first time living without roommates, so neither of us had a lot of furniture. I remember the living room only had a rocking chair, TV stand, and coffee tables that we'd put pillows on to use as a couch. The house was very bare for the first few months. I've always been pretty sensitive to the paranormal, and have had lots of experiences throughout my life. I remember being so on edge when we had moved here. It always felt like there was someone else in the house with you. I tried to tell myself it was all in my head, because I knew it was an older place and tried to not think about it too much. I was working at a nearby hospital during this time and had to be at work early in the morning. I got up, got ready, and was ready to leave. The only problem was I couldn't find my car keys anywhere. My husband and I searched the entire house, and like I mentioned earlier, the house was bare. There wasn't a lot of spots where they could be. I don't remember how I got to work that day. I think my husband ended up having to take me. We spent days looking for those keys, and we were pretty sure we were just going to have to pay to have a new key made. However, one evening we were sitting in the living room and my husband goes, "Are those your keys?" They were sitting underneath the rocking chair in plain sight. I had taken the cushions off that chair, flipped it over, moved it across the room while trying to find the keys, and suddenly there they were. We had a couple more times where things went missing and would randomly appear on the counter, or somewhere else obvious, but the keys have always stuck out to me. My husband also reminded me of another time when we first lived there. We were laying in bed one night, on our phones and talking. We weren't sleeping yet. Out of nowhere there was a pounding on our bedroom door. Like someone had hit it as hard as they could. We both jumped up, quick, thinking someone was in the house. But when we opened our bedroom door and looked around the house, it was empty. I don't think someone could have hit it and ran out of the house in time, and without us hearing them. The floors are old, and every step you take is greeted by loud, creaking floorboards, so we would have heard someone. After that, we decided to sage the house. It has such a cleaner feeling in the air afterwards. I don't know how to describe it, really. Things stopped going missing too, and it finally didn't feel like there was someone else there. We ended up saging pretty regularly after that. 5. I've been a CNA for 6 years, and have lots of paranormal experiences during the night shift, between 10 p.m. and 6 a.m. The first place I worked, I got a call lights in a room where someone had recently passed away. I was the only person working in that part of the building, and when I got to the room, it was locked like usual. When I unlocked it and went in, the cord on the wall was pulled and needing to be reset, but no one was in there. That same place had an activity room, with a couple of armchairs and a couch. I was laying on the couch one night, playing on my phone, and had my pager sitting next to me. It suddenly flew off the couch so fast, like someone had smacked it as hard as they could. That same place also had a basement that had motion-detecting lights in all the rooms. I walked into the first room to grab something, and when I walked back out, every single room in the hallway had the lights on. You could also always hear people running up and down the halls or across the ceiling, but if you went to investigate, no one was there. The scariest time was when I was working a bunch of double shifts and decided to take a nap in the break room in the basement during my lunch break. I had sleep paralysis where I was stuck on the couch, and there was an old man in the corner of the room watching me, but keeping his face hidden from me. I tried to move and get away and managed to break free and run out of the room a couple of times, only to suddenly appear back on the couch. However, the second my break ended at 30 minutes, I was suddenly able to move. I sat back up, and as soon as I did, the lights went out. They were on a timer, and should have turned off after 5 minutes. But they stayed on the entire time until my break had ended, as if they had detected the person in the corner the whole time. The last crazy things that I experienced was at a news center I was working at. I would always hear doors opening and slamming shut, or a lady's voice yelling at the end of the hallway, "Is anybody here?" But when I check all the rooms, everyone would be asleep in their beds. At that same facility, I went into a room to help someone use the bathroom. When I got him sat up on the edge of his bed, I had him grab my arms and said, "I'm gonna help you stand up, so we can use the toilet real fast, okay?" And a woman behind me, almost as if she was leaning over my right shoulder, said, "Okay," in reply. Obviously, no one was there. I know experiences like these aren't uncommon at these facilities. Does anyone have similar experiences? Hey everybody, Hellfreezer here, and thank you very much for listening to Paranormal Stories, episode 357. And thank you very much to everybody who allowed me to use their stories in this video. Hit that like button before you go, thank you kindly. If you'd like to get the videos a little early, then you can get early access by supporting my Patreon. Just click the link in the description, it'll take you to my Patreon page. You can also click the link to the Hellfreezer merchandise store to get yourself some Hellfreezer merch. Always a good time to do that. And if you'd like to leave a tip if you enjoyed the video, click that little heart with a $sign below the video. And you can leave the tip of your choice. And while you don't have to do that, I do appreciate it, and it's very helpful. Okay, let's see, no other business today. So let's move right along to Hellfreezer's question of the day. And today's question is... Alright, for those of you who have ever had a fry-up, I say this because I'm having one tonight. I decided it's time for a treat. How do you do it? Now, no fighting in the comments, please, because this can get controversial. Personally, when I do it, this is my method. I like Lorne sausage. I am Scottish, of course. That's like it's like sausage patties. You put it in like a loaf tin and then sliced. It's the best way to describe it. I also like links, generally pork links, but I will accept beef. The only ones I don't like are the particular the style when it's Lincolnshire. I find them overly herby. So anyway, we'll have Lorne. We'll have links, and I don't do this often, so I tend to have a lot of stuff on the plate. Then I'll have black pudding, sliced haggis, again, Scottish. Then I'll have something called potato scones. If you've never had them, they're lovely. I suggest you look them up. Then, I'm making myself hungry even by saying this. Then what is it? It's bacon, and I think that's everything. What I usually do, not tonight because I didn't buy any, I usually drizzle a little tomato juice over the top. Because that comes from when I was a kid, because I've spoken before about how I don't like whole tomatoes. I've become a little more tolerant of them on sandwiches over the years, because I do like the taste, I just don't like the sliminess. So my parents used to like to have like plum tomatoes on the side of the breakfast when they did that. I didn't like that, but I would have a little drizzle of the juice from the can because it was very tasty. So that comes from that. I don't buy cans of tomatoes, but I do like tomato juice, so I usually buy a carton and drizzle that and drink the rest. So that's how I do it. Oh, and I usually have a couple of well-fired rolls as well. There's a lot of food on the plate, and whenever I cook it, I tend just to cook everything in the packets, and I'll split it between two plates, and then I'll have one the next day. I'll warm up fresh. Did I mention the eggs? I usually have eggs as well, obviously. I think I forgot the eggs. So, Lorne sausage, links, eggs, bacon, potato scone, black pudding, sliced haggis. Okay. And well-fired rolls. But how do you do it, if you do it? And yes, it is unhealthy. If it sounds unhealthy, that's because it is. I don't recommend it as an everyday thing, but every once in a while it's a lovely treat to have. That being said, if you do the kind of work where it's very physical, you're burning a lot of calories, I ain't going to judge you if you have one every day. Why don't you let me know what you think in a comment below. And with that, I'm going to head off for now. So until next time, thank you very much for listening, and take very good care of yourself.